All right, take two. There's been a lot of toucans behind me making a lot of noise. Beautiful birds, but just they've been really loud today. And the rain has kind of quieted them down a bit. My wife would be here with me, but she has an autoimmune disorder, and some days are harder than others. What we wanted to talk about today is just judgment in a very broad sense. What we've been doing is just going throughout the community here in Belize, very inviting people, and they very readily invite you into the home. And one thing you quickly notice is, regardless of the person's financial status, everyone has some type of electronic device in the home in which they can watch videos online. And so this is a really good opportunity to reach people. Of course, I want to make this for friends and family as well, but primarily for the community that we meet. Daniel chapter 12, says that knowledge will increase. We need to make this knowledge known and accessible. Many people that watch this, may have been in the faith for a while, and so I just want to encourage everyone to not fall into, even addiction of watching YouTube videos, just the many addictions and things that we can fall into. God has given all of us talents, and we need to use those talents wisely. The man that's given 1 talent or 10 talents, all is given of God, and we cannot be jealous and be looking at other people's who has what, because there is one standard by which we can measure ourselves, and that's Christ. It's the only standard, and I think that's very important when we talk about judgment. I want to talk about judgment in the context of the 3 angels' messages. So, and many people, of course, that are watching this, they might not be familiar with this, and so I'm just going to quickly say, the 3 angels' messages are found in Revelation chapter 14. And this is a message that is to be given to the world before Christ is coming. And so really, it's a real honor that we can be part of this movement. And so I just encourage everyone to meditate and look further into this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read Revelation chapter 14, and we'll start in verse 6. And it says, "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice," and this is what I really want to focus on, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters." This is the first and most important message, because it's really pointing to, it's know God. As it says in John chapter 17, verse 3, "This is life eternal, to know you, the only true God, the Father, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent." Okay. The following 2 messages, they fall more under the context of warnings. Okay, we can see that in verse 8, where the second angel says, "Babylon is fallen, is fallen." Those that know Bible prophecy, we know what that means, and we will cover that more in the future. Verse 9, the third angel says, "If any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God." Okay. So these, in summary, are the 3 angels' messages. But what we're going to focus on is, what does the first angel say? He says, "Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him, the Creator." One comment I'd like to make, just to emphasize Christ as our only standard. It says here, "Fear God." Before we talk about judgment, I just want to make a point. We know that the wicked fear God, but it's more of a terror, whereas the righteous have a fear, a reverence for God. Many people that don't even know the Bible, when I talk to them, intuitively understand this difference. But it says, fear God, reverence him. And some examples I can just give off the top of my head. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3 or verse 2 says that every man is to fear every man his mother and father. Okay. And so obviously we know that this is the reverence. Okay. Our elders, our parents. Jacob, he was blessed when he worked for Laban because he feared Isaac. He feared his father. And so we know that this is reverence. But the point that I want to make in context with this verse is it says, fear God and give glory to him. We cannot fear God in of ourselves. We can only fear God if Christ has given us that ability to fear God. We can only fear God through Christ's Spirit. Okay, and then I want to point out a verse, and then we'll go back to this. If you go to Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1, makes a good point here. This is a verse that the context you'll quickly see is the Messiah. It's a messianic prophecy. It says in Isaiah 11, verse 1, there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. Okay. So the Spirit of the Father shall rest upon him, Christ. We know that all things that Christ receives are of his Father. And likewise, all things that we receive are through Christ. Okay. And so when Christ received the Spirit in full measure from his Father, it says here that he received the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. Okay. And so here Christ has received something of his Father, and he in turn gives it to us. We'll read more verses regarding that in the future. But I want to keep this in mind as we read Revelation 14 when it says, fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. The fear can only come from Christ. The glory, glorifying God, can only come through Christ. Okay. But when it says the hour of his judgment has come, this is one of the most misread parts of the Bible, because it's not talking about Judgment Day. Or the context of this verse is God. It's speaking about God, in this context, the Father. The hour of his judgment has come. And remember that we are in a great controversy. Okay? Why did this controversy start? This controversy started because Lucifer, an angel, made accusations against God that he is not fair. And of course, Lucifer became the enemy, Satan, and became known as the accuser of the brethren, the father of lies. But who is on trial? It's God's character that's on trial. And so when it says that the hour of his judgment is come, okay, the hour that his judgment is come, the hour that we judge God, the hour that God's character is revealed, the hour that we see his glory. So it's much like when Moses said, show me your glory. And once, God reveals his glory to Moses, Moses descends from the mount, and what did the people have to do? They demanded that Moses veil his face, because of the glow that it had. This is the same concept when it comes to God's character being revealed. There are those that are going to stand, and in his glory, and there are those that will not be able to stand his glory. God is a consuming fire. And so, when I just want to think about this verse in its right context, and that the hour of his judgment has come. We're going to go over some verses, and you're going to have to think about these, meditate on these a little bit more than what we're going to go through right now. But first, go to John chapter 5, verse 22. And I just want to make a couple points. Let me read it. John chapter 5, verse 22. And so we just said, that the hour of his judgment has come. But here we see, again, John chapter 5, verse 22, it says, "The Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son." And that to me is just a powerful verse. The Father judgeth no man. Well, if the Father judges no one, okay, and Christ learns all things from his Father, what do you think Christ does? Christ does the same thing as his Father. For the Father judges no one, and Christ judges no one. Okay, let's finish this verse and then we'll go to other places. It says, "For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father." I'm going to skip to verse 27. It says here that the Father hath given him, Christ, authority to execute judgment, because he is the Son of Man. Okay. Now, again, read this a little bit more later, but I want to bring out some points. Verse 22 says that the Father judgeth no man. Okay. And Jesus himself, if you skip to John chapter 8, verse 15, it says here, "You judge," this is Christ speaking, he says, "You judge after the flesh, I judge no man." So just as the Father judges no one, here Christ says, I don't judge anyone. It's like the woman that was caught in adultery, right? She stands up and Jesus says, "Where are your accusers?" She says, is there anyone left to condemn you? And she says, "No one, Lord." And Jesus says, "Nor do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Right? He doesn't pass judgment. He doesn't condemn her. Okay. Go to John chapter 3. And here we all know John 3:16, but in verse 17 it says, "For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved." Okay. "He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already." They're already condemned. By who? If Jesus doesn't condemn them, why are they condemned already? It says they are condemned already because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. Okay, these are powerful concepts. But let me, I have a couple notes here and I just wanted to, let's go to John chapter 12. John chapter 12. In verse 47. Again, Jesus speaking. "If any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not. For I came not to judge the world, but to save the world. He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day." So Christ says he does not pass judgment, but the word that he has spoken. But then he clarifies further in verse 49. "For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me, he gave me commandment of what I should say and what I should speak. For I know that his commandment is life everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak." It is the word that judges. Well, actually, let's go back to this. Back to John chapter 5. I think it's John chapter 5. Yes. John chapter 5, let's start in verse 45. "Do not think," Jesus speaking again, "do not think that I will accuse you to the Father." Again, Jesus is not the accuser of the brethren. Jesus says, "Do not think that I will accuse you. to the Father, there is one that accuseth you, even Moses, in whom you trusted. For had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? Okay. So, who judges us? And I don't think it's so much of who, but what judges us. Okay? The Father judges no one. Christ judges no one. And so I guess we'll read a couple more verses. Matthew 7, and I'm just going to read verses 1 and 2. This is the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." It's pretty straightforward. Jesus says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." Why do we not judge? We do not judge because the Father nor the Son judge. Therefore, we do not have prerogative to judge. Verse 2 of Matthew 7, verse 2. "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured against you." So, who is, or again, what is judging us in this context? It's our own words. Let's read Matthew 12. And I'm going to just read verse 37, where it says, Jesus says, "By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." Or another version says, "By your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned." And that's pretty powerful. Again, who's judge in that verse? You know, it's our own words. James chapter 4, and I'm going to read verses 11 and 12. It says here, "Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister, or judges them, speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor?" Romans 2, verse 1. "You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things." And I think I'm going to read this whole thing right here. If you read Romans 14, verse 10 through 13, it says here, "But why dost thou judge thy brother? Or why dost thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ." Okay? We shall stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Okay? But Christ says, "I judge no one." And we'll read something right after this. "For it is written, As I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. So then, every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Let us not therefore judge one another any more, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way." That's very, very important. Please, and I plead with all of us, even the mistakes that I've made, let us not put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in our brother's way. So, sometimes I feel like I can almost cry. I am sorry for the stumbling blocks that I have put in front of others. And I want us to really help one another and not make it difficult for one another. Something that I wanted to share, and I was going through online and I read this here. I went into Google and typed in Ellen White judgment, and here's a pamphlet on the judgment. And it says here, the context here is everyone is standing before the Holy One. They're standing here before the Father, before Christ. Every eye, it says, is riveted upon the face of the one upon the throne. And as his solemn, searching eye sweeps over that company, there is a quaking of heart, for they are self-condemned without one word being uttered. In anguish of soul, each declares his own guilt, and with terrible vividness sees that by sinning, he has thrown away the precious boon of eternal life. It's powerful. It says they are self-condemned without one word being uttered. And so, again, just how powerful it is for this, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, how powerful it is for this to be right with God and for us to not condemn ourselves. Okay. Again, there's more I want to say about, about living the life of Christ, about accepting his Spirit. But we'll make another video about that. First, Colossians, and I just want to read it from here. Colossians 1. Starting in verse 19. For it pleased the Father that in him, in Christ, should all fullness dwell, and having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him, I say, whether they be things in earth or things in heaven. And you that were sometime alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now hath he reconciled in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight. Now I know that's a long verse, but I just want to emphasize that it says in verse 21, and you that were sometime alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works. Again, who is condemning us? Again, we can condemn ourselves. Jesus says, and I don't have the chapter here, but Jesus says in verse, I don't know where, I can't remember. It's in the book of John. He says, which of you convinceth me of sin? I think it's interesting that he says that. Who can convince me of sin? And is that not the same for us individually? I'll read one more verse and then just give an example. It says here in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Again, it is our conscience that is seared through our evil works, through our wicked works. And so, and this, of course, this verse emphasizing the latter times, that many shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Doctrine, we have to be careful of doctrine. Doctrine is one of the ways in which we tear people down the most. Jesus says, those that do the will of him who sent me will know his doctrine. And so it is more important to have the right spirit, and then the doctrine follows. And so I think that, again, many of us fall in judgment of one another. And this is very blinding. I am very guilty. Very guilty. I fall. And I ask for forgiveness. But I want us to think about, when we think about the first angel's message, that the hour of his judgment has come. Who is being judged? No. We are judging God. And that's a very solemn thought. I want to, in some more videos, go over some other concepts of judgment that me and my wife have seen in stories. And I'll leave you with one thought. You guys might have heard this, but I'm just gonna, think about Adam and Eve. God never passes judgment. It's Adam, it's man that passes judgment, right? God comes down looking for Adam, a father looking for his child. And Adam is hiding. Of course he knows where Adam is. And Adam is hiding behind the trees. We know in symbolism, a tree is a person. So I think it's kind of interesting. Adam is hiding behind the trees. Mankind hides behind trees. We hide behind people. We hide behind the thoughts of others, the sins of others. We excuse ourselves because of passing judgment on others. And so here Adam, he comes out from the trees, and God says, why were you hiding? Well, I heard you were naked. I was naked. I heard you coming, and who told you were naked? Did you eat of the tree? Of course, Adam eventually snaps. And what does he do? He blames God, and he blames his wife for the sin that he committed. And this could be elaborated in great detail. We blame God for more than we know. I'm starting to see things that I blame God for that I did not really consciously understand in the past. And so we judge God in a depth that I think is very powerful and very sobering. It's kind of scary. God is only trying to help Adam out of his sin, and Adam condemns or judges God. And so I just want us to realize where we make our mistakes. Once Adam judges God and sins, the very first thing that God does is institute or just reveal his plan of salvation. He says, the very first words he says, he doesn't condemn them. He says, and he's speaking to the serpent, but he says, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. Okay. And so here, it's God, it's like a parent being blamed for something, and the parent immediately saying to their son or their daughter, I love you, I know you don't understand this, but I'm going to get you out of this. And so here, God gives his plan of salvation. We have a very merciful God, needless for me to say, but we cannot test his mercy, okay? I could just leave it there. Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. All of these three things come from Christ. Fear God. Well, Christ was given the fear of the Lord, which we receive through Christ. Give glory to him. Christ glorified his Father in heaven. And it's through Christ that we can glorify our Father in heaven. Give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. The Father judges no man. Christ says, I judge no man. Okay? We do not want to become an accuser of the brethren. There is a place to warn people against their wickedness. As in the book of Ezekiel, we are to be watchmen on the wall. But we have to do this wisely, not to put stumbling blocks in front of our brethren. Okay? It is God that does the cutting, as has been said. He's the surgeon, not the butcher. Right? So, all right, I think we'll stop there. There's some other stories that I'd like to read in the future, but we'll just put that into another video. Maranatha. Even though I have netting here, there's still some mosquitoes in here, and so I'm gonna get in the house where it's away from these bugs. God bless you guys, and for anyone that has gotten anything out of this, thank God. I prayed with my wife beforehand, and I hope that I can be an instrument for him to reach people. Okay. All right.